Well, if you look at the overall deal activity in China over the previous 6-month period, actually the first half of 2014 saw a record high value of M&A activity in China. It reached $183 billion, which is the highest level of M&A activity in China since the records began, in fact. And if you look at where that's coming from, it's coming from the domestic sector. In particular, a lot of transactions involving state-owned enterprises as part of the SOE reforms, which is one of the sources of the larger size activities. The outbound has been somewhat flat, but actually quite an increase in activity by privately owned enterprises doing overseas deals. Again, some larger size transactions as those companies went out looking for new markets, new ways to grow inorganically with the slowing of the markets in China, looking for technologies, brands, know-hows that can bring back and bring into China. So good activity there. And then the other area I think where there was very robust M&A activity was around private equity, and in particular quite a lot of activity around private equity exits. So if you look at private equity M&A, there are a number of things that are really driving that PE M&A and a number of trends that we expect to see going into the future. So we expect to see, for example, more larger size deals. In the first half of the year, for example, there were 9 deals bigger than $500 million, which was quite a big size for private equity deals in China. So there were 9 of those deals in the first half. We expect the deal sizes to continue to grow. We expect to see more buyout situations. We're seeing private equities interested in outbound situations. In particular, they're looking to acquire companies and then bring them back to the China market and use their connections and resources in the China market to help them to do that. We're seeing the private equities get involved in the SOE reforms, and they can be a source of some larger size transactions. Interest in A-share companies, both as targets for the private equities, but also as buyers of the portfolio companies of the private equities. And we're seeing a lot of exit-related activity around private equities, as I said earlier. So we're seeing IPOs, we're seeing M&A selling to strategic buyers, we're seeing a little bit of secondary private equity activity, PEs selling to PEs, and that's an area that we expect to grow in the future. So we expect this elevated level of deal activity to continue. In fact, we to some extent we know that it will, because we see the pipeline at an earlier stage within our own M&A advisory businesses. We're expecting to see good, strong domestic M&A activity. We're seeing outbound remaining strong, led by the POEs, and a high level of private equity activity, as I mentioned earlier. So I've talked about some of those sectors already. Maybe just talk a little bit about domestic M&A. And what we're seeing there, for example, is continuing consolidation within industry sectors in China, squeezing out excess capacity. We're seeing the SOE reforms. We've talked about that in every category of M&A. It's a source of the larger size transactions, which is one of the reasons for the deal values increasing overall. We see A-share companies looking to do M&A as a source of inorganic growth. It's so much harder to grow now organically as the China economy slows, and because of the competition within industry segments. So A-share companies in particular using M&A as a source of growth. And I think also we'll continue to see backdoor listings in China as a means of accessing the capital markets, which is currently very difficult through the IPO process. If you think about the sectors that we're going to see activity in, a lot of stuff around real estate, a lot of stuff around technology, in particular around the internet companies, and financial services also is an important sector. And again, you see the larger deal sizes in the FS industry. So a continuation of this trend. I'm quite sure that the second half of 2014 actually will be a new record for the value of China M&A.